talking to loads of you, it does seem as though we've all been able to take a really good break. And perhaps especially those who normally for the last 2 weeks have been doing A-level and GCSE results, all that come from that. The chance of coming from one intensive burst and then to go back and get another decent break. Hopefully it's been really well enjoyed and really good at making stuff as well. So massive welcome back. I was able to say welcome to new colleagues yesterday morning on their induction day. So again, another welcome to them now. Due to the numbers of new starters that we have on any given year, it would actually take quite a long time to go through sort of the list of all of them. So if you're new and you're training at the moment, we might have to stand up in front of the entire sort of gathered body. Do not worry. I think we'll take the opportunity to do those welcomes in the separate meetings. One person we can't avoid that fate, however, is our new senior deputy head. Not least because he's actually going to be with Antonio co-presenting something later this morning. So Morris, if you'd like to just stand up and do the 12. A great to have Morris with us, and I know that he's going to be a sort of presence across the entire school, and so I'm sure you will get to know him and get to see him as well. Whilst many of us have been able to take a really good break over the summer here at school, it's been a frenetic number of weeks, and Matt's going to talk a little bit about some of the summer work which has taken place. It's been absolutely gigantic. I mean, IT is just one example. There's so many different bits of work that have taken place during the summer. So a huge thank you to everybody who's been working incredibly hard. Actually, glancing up into the crowd, that brings me to another person I think might be useful to stand up and just which is our new sort of director of operations, so estates manager. So James Barker. James, would you mind just standing briefly as well? And it's something that you can go really so it's something I've been sensible to introduce you to, James, and of course you'll be seen around the school as well. But thank you massively to you, to all of your teams, and to John as well, for all the incredible work that's taken place to get us ready for, hopefully, a return to normal, to this way, British Charles, whatever normal means. So over the course of the next couple of days, we've got a variety of things that we're trying to achieve. There's a number of things that we all need to gather for, the very important that we all collectively join in and work through some stuff together. And then, of course, there's things we need to break out of our various sections and do. But we've also tried to achieve it so there's enough gaps and spaces in between to give you time to feel that you're sort of personally prepared to then go into the weekend and to start fresh on Monday. So very briefly, I want to take you through some big picture thinking in my session with you this morning, and then Matt's going to do not just a finance presentation, but some wider information about some of the other works which have been going on. And then, of course, we have the very important annual safeguarding trainings and updates. And we're very fortunate many people have met Dale Wilkins, who's the lead on training and safeguarding for BSA, the Boarding Schools Association. He's done quite a bit of work with us over recent years. And so he's coming to do that presentation alongside Antonio Clark, who of course was DSL last year, and this is going to remain as the deputy DSL for 2-way. And Morris, of course, is becoming the DSL for the whole school. And then the next time we're going to all gather, there's an optional chapel tomorrow lunchtime, and then the next time we'll all gather will be in here tomorrow afternoon. So diversity and inclusion is a topic and an issue, a range of issues, which has been bubbling along now for actually a long time. And it's one of the things which during the course of the pandemic we wanted to keep a focus on and keep doing some work on. And that's something which is going to carry on being an active part of our processes during the next year or so. We've decided to work with a very, very excellent company called Inclusion Labs, and so they're going to be putting some work to do tomorrow afternoon in this presentation as well. And then for those of you who are familiar with the setup of these normal rugby days, we always like to gather at the end on Friday afternoon, just the whole staff, so teaching and support, just to share some fellowship and share some refreshments together. It's been a heck of an 18 months, and so what we've decided to do is to go a little bit upscale. So there will be vegetarian options, by the way. We've gone more for sort of a hog roast approach, so that's some refreshments and gathering that will take place at the end of tomorrow. And so hopefully a chance for a real success of gathering together, and perhaps an opportunity to raise a glass of whether it's old fizz or something else with fizz inside, and to look back over what we've all achieved in the last couple of years, but also to look forward with some optimism and confidence coming forwards. So, on the theme of what's coming up there. So, I hope by now you've had a chance to look through, and if you haven't, please make sure you do, the various COVID risk assessments and how we're approaching it. One of the great things that we know over the last 18 months is that you never quite know what is around the corner. I'm fairly confident that we can actually, within 24 to 48 hours, turn the school from anything from utterly 100% complete normal running into remote learning, let's face it, they want to do that. But I think that we're sort of battle hardened and we know what we're doing in all of these areas. So what we're going to be doing over the course of the next few weeks is just starting to settle back in to some areas, but keeping some things the same. I think hygiene measures are going to be really important going forwards. I think that people in general terms in public, I see a lot of people still automatically wanting to wear face masks around the place and things like that. But also, if you think about it, every autumn, every spring, schools always get hit by the cough and cold season as well. And I think it would be no bad thing for us as a school to perhaps just keep going with some of the various hygiene measures and hand sanitisation and so forth, just as fairly normal practice going forwards. And then obviously carrying on with the testing for the staff and pupils as we start to sort of settle back in as well and start to get that general picture. Random information, for example, we've got a really big dinner on Saturday night. There's over 250 people coming to the old beach club dinner, which is absolutely brilliant news. But all of them have been asked to make sure that they've taken a test before they come in. So just keeping, although we're not required to do that, just keeping the consciousness of those sorts of things going. And as you will have seen, a gradual return to old school gathering. So the first time that the 3 different sections of school will all gather together in one place won't be current planning until a week next Friday. And that's designed just to set us back in. So it's got 2 functions really. One is to get us used to being together in larger groups of people around the school, because let's face it, we haven't been used to doing that for a while. The second thing, of course, is it does just give us that first fortnight, just to assess and just to see, are we seeing any spikes and breaks? Has Leeds Fest had an impact on schools in York, for example? All those sorts of things, just as we gradually get ourselves back into it. And of course, one of the hot topics we've been going through has been the importance of ventilation as we go through the next term. So that's where we are on the going stuff. As the email that came out to the guide says, if you have any questions or concerns, please bring them forward through the usual channels. Back in spring of 2020, we were all absolutely ready for our regulated compliance inspection. It had been exactly 3 years since the full EQI was inspected. School did very well in, and we were all prepared. All the documents are actually, the nerd sheet was in full place for whatever was going to be coming, and then something else cropped up. It does, of course, mean that inspections are restarting from September. Theoretically, we get the phone call on Monday or from any time thereafter. So first of all, just a massive thanks to Sarah Birch and to other people who keep all of that inspector preparedness and to Andy Falk and other people to make sure that we are ready. But just to bring that onto our radars, please, that we expect during the course of whether it's this term or this academic year to have a regulated compliance inspection. That's not the inspecting the quality of teaching in the classroom. It's more about the compliance side, but it is still a major event in the life of the school. It will also include an EYFS inspection as well, and also on the boarding side, the NMS, the National Minimum Standards. Something else that we might see going on during the course of this term as well is we've engaged a firm of architects called Orms, who work with a variety of sort of similar schools. So schools like Highgate and Huckmingham. It's similar in the sense of being large schools on campuses where there's a blessed space in one sense and blessed restrictions in the other sense as well. And there's always been a campus master plan, certainly for the last 7 or 8 years or so. And what we decided to do is to plan back and take a more holistic view of the entire campus. So we all know there are certain facilities, so second Hattery Turf will be desperately welcome, I suspect. We know that the dining room up here, 13 to 18, is too small. So we can easily write a list of those facilities which we know we would really like and really do need as well. But we've also decided to see it in a much more holistic way. So it enables us to look at the use of the site, the facilities that we need, how we're going to take it forward, and also think about energy efficiency as well, because I think that's a massively important aspect for us to really be focusing on over the coming years as well. So that you'll see some of these people from the architectural firm around the first people during the course of this term. They'll be presenting back to the leadership team, so hopefully back into this term, going into January of next term, and that will then help us to shape our thinking about the use of the campus going forwards. And then finally on this list, some of you, but not all of you, will be aware about a request for a voluntary recognition agreement. And that's a request that came to the governors from the NASUWT and the NEU teaching unions. And that's to enter into a voluntary recognition agreement with those 2 unions, and that will be where consultation will take place on changes to conditions of service and other terms and so forth. It's an entirely statutory process. It's one of these good things where there's a really clear sort of roadmap as to how you go about going through these things. So just all I want to say to all of you this morning was that we will be sending out, or the school will be sending out, an information document that will go to all colleagues, both teaching and support, explaining what a VRA, voluntary recognition agreement, is and how they operate and how it works. Because it only affects the teaching staff at school, the teaching staff will then be asked to express their views whether they think the government should enter into a voluntary recognition agreement or not, and we will then follow through from there. That will take place, I hope, in the next couple of weeks. I think one of the sort of things which I think the school's fairly ready to get on with, and that will take place prior to any consultation with TPS. But as I say, without taking into the mechanics of what a VRA is in a meeting like this, you'll get an information document. I think sometime at the middle back end of next week is the current thing on that. So there we go, so there's that one there. Right. I really wanted to look ahead, really, and to talk about the road to normal. Fairly obvious one, as it says there on the screen. For all of us who've been here prior to the pandemic beginning, it's actually been a heck of a long time since we've lived in anything like normal. And when you think about the children and how long 18 months is in the life of a child, for them it's been an incredibly long time since they just came to school and got on with being at school. And obviously for people who are new, they've never actually seen what normal looks like. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit this morning about what normal actually is for us. It's the first opportunity for us to gather as a staff community since September 2019, was the last time that we actually were all in a space like this together. So I just wanted to remind ourselves about that. There are many things, of course, that we could say about it, but fundamentally, schools are about young people and setting them up for life. And I think our purpose here, whether it's at the age of 2 in the nursery, or running all the way through the up to 6 and then engaging with the old kids as well, is thinking about what's going to make them really successful and confident and fulfilled adults who will make a positive difference in their world as well. And I know you know this, or many people have said this before, but for those of you, if you haven't, perhaps just useful to say, for us that really does say it's a combination of those 4 pillars that we talk about them, of the qualifications and the skills and interests and values. And one of the great joys about being in a school that educates across that enormous age range is that it will look different, and quite right, it should feel really different to the nursery in some ways. But underneath it, you shouldn't have to scratch too far to see how, in any different year group in the school, they're actually fundamentally engaged in a similar sort of process. And obviously qualifications, the easy sort of go-to thing there would be the GCSEs and the A-levels, but there are so many other qualifications, whether you think about music examinations or drama examinations or Duke Fender Award, or all the various sorts of coaching things that they can do as they go through. So qualifications, yes, they're very important. In a very dull way, we live in a qualification-driven society, and our children have been for many years now the most over-examined in the whole of Europe as little guys. But there is a sort of non-negotiable around the importance of having qualifications to move them forward. But that's just the most phenomenally limited view as to what an education should look and should feel like. So when we think about skills, that I think is what really does make a massive difference. And of course, they develop skills through academic subjects, but that's got to be complemented by that much broader range of skills that they need for that truly successful life. And that's why Peters is one of the busiest schools, if not the busiest school I've ever come across. And it's why we place such a massive emphasis on not just what goes on inside the classroom, but all that happens outside it as well. Back in 2018, the World Economic Forum produced their Future Jobs Report, and it's really interesting. You can Google it very, very easily. It's got some fascinating stuff about which career pathways are sort of trending, which career pathways might be declining over the coming years. But the bit that I find really interesting, and it's on page 12 if you want to look at the quick version of it, is the skills that they're talking about. What are the skills that are going to enable people to really stand out and thrive in that massively fast-changing world? That will that cliche about a portfolio of careers, going from the jobs that they exist, all that sort of thing. Well, here's the list that they put forward and said these are really important ones. And they talk about emotional intelligence, leadership, social influence, creativity, originality, initiative, critical thinking, persuasion and negotiation, resilience, flexibility, and complex problem solving. And when I also got quite interested in that Future Jobs Report, and I was thinking about the nature of Peters, one of the things that struck me was it's something which the school has always actually just done almost as a byproduct of just being so blooming busy and giving the children so many opportunities for what they do. But arguably, the qualification piece slips away by the age of children. 25, certainly by 30. It will be the skills that they develop with us that are going to be really important. And that's where that much wider thing about what happens inside, but crucially outside the classroom, makes such a difference to. And then interests. They are going to be working, unless they hit home run with a tech startup or something, into their 70s probably. And so they must have things which they enjoy doing, things which they really are passionate about, that take them away from their working lives, that give them community, give them relationships, give them excitement and things to look forward to throughout the whole of their lives, and then also, crucially, give them sort of a more different chance to develop their skills as well. And as importantly, interesting people are interesting to be around as well, so give them that sense of spot. And finally, if the 18 months to sort of remind us of anything else, values really are the bedrock. We need values in times of prosperity and in times of adversity. So to develop the values as they go through their time with us, giving them the opportunity to make those complex moral decisions that they'll need to make as they go through. So that's very much the superstructure, if you like, what we do. And then some other broad things about what makes Peters normal, what's normal at Peters. Well, a massively broad, but also very deep education. I think something that we all find really, really important is this notion of excellence, not elitism. And excellence is to be massively celebrated, but elitism, I think, is to be sort of sniffed at and viewed with some suspicion and some wariness as well. And that links, of course, into the notion of participation. We don't want to be a school where you have to be the top 15% of whatever your game is to stand out. We want you to be able to participate and to take part and to feel part of something wherever your particular strengths and interests lie. And we want it to be full of creativity, and we want it to be full of fun. There's so many sort of drudgy things that teenagers have to go through and younger children have to go through as well. We want life at school to be fun as well. Another facet of our school in normal life, of course, is partnerships. We've probably got more partnerships than any other school in the country as well. The Independent State School Partnership is one good example. Other local schools that we've been engaged with as well. Things like a Northern Learning Conference that gives us that footprint, public lectures, Springboard, the National Boarding Charity we partner with, we're doing some really interesting work with them at the moment. Doing some leadership work with them around looked after children, where that might fit into day places as well as boarding places. The Archbishop Centenary Academy across and Hull partnership with them as well. And of course, York Minster always have that partnership, and since the last couple of years, we've become the choir school again for the Minster, that sense of partnership. So that's again another part of normal in inverted commas at Peters. And of course, as I mentioned, just the most phenomenally busy school, whether it's the fixtures, the concert plays, the trips, open events, prospective families travelling around. I was sent through the data on the open event sign up just yesterday, so thank you, Catherine, for saying those through. Last year was a massive increase on the previous year. We've seen another increase again. So perhaps no surprise, the school is getting, has always been very well known, and increasingly so. So you will see some very busy open mornings, some very busy open events coming up as well, especially last term when they were finally able to come back on site a bit more, was that they said, we've really missed this. They said, we've really missed this joy of being able to be in and out of school as well. And the old Peterites likewise, they've really missed being around. I think it's no surprise that OB Day looks to be sort of pretty enormous, with people just desperate to get back on site, as well as, of course, our community as a whole staff. And this is a school which actually does the one staff thing, I think, really better, so it's being consciously aware of being one staff or teachers and support than other schools in the country as well. Other things which perhaps other schools don't have. We've got that sense of heritage, we've got 627 AD, the sense of history. I think there's a school in the country that can have a combination of 50 acres of green open space here, and in 6 minutes walk away, I reckon it's about the best city in the entire country to live and to work in as well. Not all schools, I mentioned previously, have the joy of educating from the age of 2 to 18, in the sense of being able to shape what that should look like and what it should feel like. Not all schools get to feel like a boarding school and also have a massive day-to-day presence as well. That sense of permanent on-site community. The school never closes. People never go home. Even during holidays, there's still people who are here as well. The choir school for York Minster. And a sense of pride but not complacency. A bit like that thing about excellence but not elitism. Pride in what we do, but not complacency in what we do either. So I suppose the last sort of point to make there is normal at Peters, frankly, isn't normal. I mean, we are phenomenally lucky, and it doesn't happen without an enormous amount of thought, an enormous amount of hard work and planning that goes into it as well. But normal here is not normal. It's something really rather special, and it's something really rather unique. And I think that's perhaps one of the reasons why the school is very strong, but also potentially why we've had that recognition in various national awards in recent years as well. And then we certainly talk about scaffolding, and I always say scaffolding is ugly and should be hidden inside buildings, but you do need structures to enable things to take place. And this actually goes back a while ago now, but one of the focuses that we've had in recent years has been really trying to focus on what's it mean to be a through school, and not just sort of 3 schools in a sort of a federation sharing campus, as it were, but what's it mean to be one school. And of course, you've got to align yourself around those shared aims. And as I mentioned before, that can be different things to a 3-year-old, to a 7-year-old, to a 9-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old, and 18-year-old. But fundamentally, they've got to be the same. I'm not going to read them through. You'll recognise in those academic aims very much a reflection of that qualifications and the skills and the interests and values. The one little point I'd make about achieving excellent results through that desire for learning, that curiosity for learning, that's really, really important, because the way the current assessment system is set up, arguably less so available, but you can just get drawn straight into a real grab-on approach to being an exam technician and actually wanting them to really enjoy their learning. They're not going to do great the older they get through school and when they leave us if all we do is try and put them as being exam monkeys and make them into exam technicians. We really want to develop that sense, and that's where the breadth of the academic, the super-curricular, if you like, is really, really important to us. For what it's worth, there's so much chat in the press at the moment. It's really, I'll say, stupid reporting. It's really dumb reporting about grade inflation, as though these last 2 years, somehow we've seen a bit of flight path from 2010 through to 2019-20 and 2021. I think the last two scientific results, they have to be seen in isolation from any results that go previously, simply because they've been taken in radically different ways. We're still waiting to get some real clear sense from government as to what they think might be the future flight path for next summer. It's a bit interesting to see that the Labour Shadow Education Minister was on the Today programme yesterday and actually made some really great points and made some very sensible suggestions as to what next summer might look like. But the sense of getting back to normal with things like A-levels and GCSEs, I personally think there is a massive opportunity to have a look at that qualification system that we have and say, is it working? Is it really reflecting how they're going to go on and work in later life? Is it giving all children the opportunity? So I think there is a separately to the pandemic, separately to tax and tax. I think there's a really interesting educational piece around what should it look like, but not to say a reflection of saying there's been great inflation for the last 2 years and somehow that's what should be driving it. Operationally, now you can have the most brilliant approach to education you like in the entire world, but fundamentally a school like ours has got to run as a highly successful organisation as well. If you haven't got that superstructure underneath it, everything else will fall apart. And if you look at the school in one sense, we're just the most astonishing educational learning community. You look at the school in another sense, and we're an employer that employs over 300 people, contributes £60 million into local economy, and needs a massive raft of people and skills and expertise to make sure that we've got the structures that we need, so that when the children come in on a daily basis, they simply crack on with having a brilliant time at school. And so that sense of these shared organisation aims, or operation aims, as well, are so important. So obviously that sense of being able to communicate effectively. Sometimes in a busy school, that's just keeping parents and pupils up to date with what's going on. But it's also really important that the wider world, the wider community, really understands this. There's an element, of course, to that in terms of people's subscription to the school and their desire to understand the school and want to come to school. I think we've also got a chance, especially given the sort of recognition the school has at the moment, is to play our part on the more national scale of what education is about. Because let's face it, independent education, I don't think is fully understood by many sections. And I think you've got a press at the moment which is very, very happy to look for gaps and look for faults and to promote a narrative that I don't feel comfortable in saying that that actually reflects our intention and how we actually live and the positive impact that we have. So that sense of communication is massively important. And likewise, strategic planning. The ability not just to look at the here and now. We have to be trifocal, not just bifocal. We've got to go to the real nitty-gritty. We've got to go to look at what's coming up so that in the next few months down the track, but we've also crucially got to be looking at what we need to be positioning for over the next 10, 20 to 30 years as well. It's one of my duties as a master here, along with other people, is to keep my eyesight on today, onto the next term, but also onto that future landscape as well. And so that's the importance of the planning structures. And obviously, it's about staff, teaching staff and support staff, to making sure that you're resourced effectively, that you're developed as well. So, coming towards the end now, but thinking at the issues of looking at something that's more bifocal and trifocal, we'll always have that continued development of excellence because education keeps on moving on and we keep on bumping into exciting new ideas and exciting new things of doing things, whether that's through the tech stuff we've been doing or just great developments in pedagogy and different ways of teaching and learning as well. And we of course see that through the annual list of educational priorities, but also other priorities on the support side that we get through each of the school. Over the course of the coming years, I don't just say that I think we want to see an increased number of pupils coming to school on help with fees. It's a good number at the moment, and the difference it's making is tremendous. One of the things I like about it is that apart from the store staff who need to know who they are for various reasons, you wouldn't necessarily know who they are. But every year we just check in and just ask ourselves how are they performing, how are they doing. And the simple answer is they typically are just grabbing opportunities and running with it. And they are brilliant young men and women, making wonderful chances of what they're being given here as well. But I don't feel we're doing enough in this area. And I think that there's a moral purpose to this. I think that over the course of the last 10 to 20 years, all independent schools, with the sort of increasing costs of running schools and fees going up and so forth, we've started to ever gradually just more and more detach from the natural demographic of those who would have been at schools of this nature, and that's changed. And unless we do something about it, then it's just going to get even more so and increasingly so. This is not the reason for doing it, but if all you do is change nothing else, put 3% on school fees year after year, you will gradually start to narrow the children. You might have millions of people who want to come to school like this, but those who are able to becomes narrower and narrower. It's not good for the life of the school to become ever so narrowly increased around sort of a financial element as well as the academic ability or wider ability. So there's a real moral purpose to this in terms of why we want to see an increased number of pupils here at help with fees. It also is about keeping us really rooted in our local community, and also about very much for talent and for opportunity for young boys and girls who otherwise wouldn't have a chance to be here. So that's one of the focuses that I'd like to see us pushing forwards over the coming years as well. And as I mentioned previously, this is not just about ego points. I'm not actually, I'm not actually very interested in becoming one of those kind of Fox pop heads, sort of constantly trying to pop up on various media programs and things. But I do want the school to have wider recognition, as I said earlier on. I think we've got a brilliant opportunity to play a wider part in the national understanding of education and where education should be going in the school, because we have just such the most tremendous amount of excellence and a great story to tell in there as well. And there's a wider element of that too. Families are, of course, becoming more mobile around the UK. There's been a change in the UK boarding market. Boarding is really, really important for the nature of the school, and there have been changes to that market as well. I'm sure you're aware, since the very sad closure of the Minster School, there's now one standalone 13+ prep school within 20 miles of here. The next standalone 13+ prep school is over 30 miles away, and the next one after that is over 90 miles away. So for those of you who lived and worked in this area, you may already know that may come something of a surprise. So that whole landscape has changed. So our ability to communicate further afield is really, really important. And that was part of the reason behind looking for the one unified name of St Peter's across the entire school. Because once you're inside the school, it all makes perfect sense. You know exactly what we mean when we say Clifton or Olives, or if you say Peters and we're trying to work out who Peters 1318 or Peters as the entire place. But externally, very, very confusing indeed. So that's one of the reasons for getting that sense. The other reason is actually just really like saying we are one shared school and one sort of shared sort of focus approach as we go through it as well. And obviously that brings challenges. And you've got what sometimes people as being the unsquareable triangle. So I know that's impossible in any case, but it is the unsquareable triangle, because we don't talk about keeping all the hots and lights on the stove at the same time. It's really difficult to do so. But this is the challenge that we've got. It's keeping 3 points of tension in hopefully the right sort of area. One of them is investment in the pupils. And what I mean by that is their experience of their life at school. So the facilities that they have, the resources they have, the opportunities they have. And it's really, really important that we have money to invest in those opportunities as well. Of course, this investment in colleagues is the most important resource in any organisation as well. Personal development, professional development, and remuneration as well. That piece. And as I mentioned previously, affordability and looking after our parents, if you like, in terms of keeping fee increases as low as we possibly can. And that is a really difficult challenge, but that's one of the things. I mean, I know Matt's going to come on and talk about some of these things later on this morning, but that's one of the things which, from the wider school perspective, is very much constant in the forefront of our thinking, is about how do we try to keep those 3 points in the right tension. And that, of course, leads us into that need for increased revenue away from school fees. I'm not going to take Matt's thunder on some of these areas, but just a few sort of broad points at a time. This is why independent schools have looked at overseas schools. A couple of points there. It's not just about revenue. Yes, the revenue side that they bring in coming back to the mothership is, of course, very, very important. It's one of the core drivers of my school's business. But actually, it's also about global partnerships and having some sense of global understanding and global engagement as well, which can be really fruitful and productive for a whole school community as well. And it's also, although the ladies that we need to always be about China, it's also not just about China, it's about wider territories around the world as well. Matt may touch on this later on. I know this is not something that people talk about sometimes. One of the ways in which overseas schools work is we invest our time, we do not invest a penny in school finances in doing any of our overseas school work. That may seem like an astonishing sort of thing, how on earth can you do that? The simple version of this is that you always work with overseas partners, and their responsibility is to put forward all of the financial backing. That actually includes seed funding into the school, all of our costs before we incur them. So whether that's legal costs or planning costs or any of those sorts of things. So they actually pay us up front. So the school never puts money out of our own pocket into doing these things. What we provide is our time and our expertise, which otherwise they wouldn't have the other schools with. So that's a sort of very brief thing there, as Matt can talk about. And if you're interested in this, by the way, and you want to sort of catch me or Matt and say, I was just going to fascinating, tell me more about it, by all means, please do so. But look at that other thoughts revenue, yes, there is that there. External lettings, and there's always that balance between making sure that the school functions and thrives in a normal way on a day-to-day basis, exactly as it should do. There's been quite a large increase in external lettings, so thank you very much to everybody who's been involved in various holiday camps as well during the course of summer as well. But that opportunity to have more people coming to see the school and to take part in those things. And fundraising, both for bursaries, but also for capital projects as well. Some other people that you will see around the school during the course of this term, we're working towards launching quite a significant capital fundraising campaign around bursaries around health fees. And I want to tie that into 2027, of course, it's the 1,400th anniversary of the school. And I think it's a really good and important opportunity to look back at the soul of the school and say, who are we today? What sort of school do we want to be? We'll return back to that, the demographic of the school, the nature of the pupils and the families that we have coming to school, and tying in part of that tying it into an increased number of children here on healthy foods as well. So in terms of, we've been doing quite a lot of work on this over the course of the last year or so, and we're now starting to build up our activities in there more frequently. So we're partnering in with a highly experienced firm called Competence, who've worked with a number of independent schools very successfully in this area. You will see a lady called Linda Ellis from Competence, who will be here from time to time during the course of the next term, and in fact after that one as well. And she's going to be based, she's going to have an office in where Philip and Sue now are, so it was the school uniform shop across over there. So some things that you'll see there as well. So I was just catching that and to watch it. Actually, I think that's 7 or 8 times I don't remember these again. And fine, it's always been fine when I speak, so it's fine about that. I hope that does set, as in sense, to reset. I know for many of you, you might be thinking, well, that's just a good reminder. For some of you, hopefully it's been a way of putting a number of different strands together. What is normal actually is not normal nationally. We're very, very lucky it is normal for us. It's not going to happen overnight. You know, we're going to sort of gradually work our way back in towards it and feel our way back towards it. But I think, hopefully, talking to so many of you, we all share that same sort of massive cross fingers that over the course of the coming weeks and the course of the coming year, we will get back to that recollection of what is normal and be able to celebrate quite how fantastic and exciting a place we're meant to be. So, finally for me, we're going to go to break. We've tried to put some gaps in. We're coming back in at 9:45, so we've got and I'm sure Matt will be happy to start a couple of minutes later if needs be, but the chance is to stretch the legs, use the springs, so it's been a massive looking back, well done, I think, in the last couple of years. Busy times ahead, exciting times ahead. I hope the next couple of days goes well for you. Very good. So back here in about 10 minutes.